good morning, and welcome to another Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. We have a special treat. This man is no stranger to our sessions. We have none other than the Professor, Brandon Robertson, and his topic is going to be how to listen to a rhythm section. And this is really geared to all our horn players out there today. So he's going to, drop some knowledge on us and let us know what we can do with that rhythm section, horn players. Even if you're not a horn player, we welcome you here. I know we're going to learn a lot. And we just want to remind you, if you have questions, go into that chat feature. Make sure you type your questions in. We're going to reserve some time at the end so we can answer any of those. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, don't forget, you can go for more of our free sessions, and they're posted at clearwaterjazz.com/education. And we love to hear from our audience. So you want to email us and tell us how great this is, or you want to hear a certain topic, email us at info@clearwaterjazz.com. All right. And before we get started, we couldn't do this without our sponsors. So we just want to remind you to check out the studio archives of past video sessions at clearwaterjazz.com. In the education and outreach section. That's brought to you by our friends over there at Blue Water Wealth Management, at Stewart Partners, and Duke Energy. As well as check out the Young Lions podcast available wherever you stream. And that's brought to you by our friends over there at Marine Max Clearwater. And just search Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. So some of the professor's past sessions, and I really love this one last time, is what I love about Christian McBride. That was awesome. And many of you don't know, Christian McBride actually saw some of this session. That's amazing. We also did new ways to practice, make it fun. We talked about the 2-5-7 progressions, part 1 and 2. And this was a great one, performance anxiety. I know some people really deal with that. And, Brandon, he did an awesome job explaining about that. Or the last one, how to put together your gig calendar. So just want to tell you a little bit about Brandon. He is an Emmy-nominated music director, professional upright electric bassist, composer, and music educator, originally from none other than Tampa, Florida. He completed his Bachelor's of Arts in Music from Florida State University in 2009, and he received his Master's of Music and Jazz Studies in the spring of 2016. And, currently he's down there at the FGCU. He's the basketball band director. He's the band director, jazz band. He's doing everything at Florida Gulf Coast University down there in Fort Myers. I know they keep him busy. And what you may not know, in 2018, he was nominated for an Emmy Award for Best Documentary for educational collegiate programs featured the FGCU Jazz Ensemble. So we know he's a prominent band leader. He's performed with so many people, and I think he's at a performance now somewhere across the world. But he's performed with the world famous Count Basie Orchestra led by Scotty Barnhart, vocalist Carmen Bradford, Jason Marcellus, Marcus Robertson, Martin Morrell, and the great Wyclef Gordon. The names go on and on and on. So we want to go ahead and get this started. And if you want to check out some of his music, because you've heard all the accolades, but maybe you want to hear the man himself, well, you're fortunate. You can check out his debut album, which is titled Based on a True Story. And it came out fall of 2019, and it reached all the way to number 16 on the iTunes charts of 200 release. So, Professor Brandon Robertson, it's your time. The stage is all yours.
Well. How do I come back from that? Do I even try to come somewhere? I don't even know how to come back from that. Well, yes, I'm somewhere around the world. If I'm kind of like pop locking in your screen right now. Hey, sorry about that. Just what happens when you're traveling. You got to be at two places at once. So forgive me for that. But for today's session, though, let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Now I've talked about in the past, like, how do you play as a rhythm section player? How do you accompany like a horn player or a vocalist, or how do you listen to yourself as a rhythm section player? But I think it is time I think it's time to play to address horn player. How do you really play with a rhythm section? Because in my experiences, what I have come across is that I have two sides to it. One side is you have the side of everyone who's on the stage decides that they would like to play, and they'll play about 6 or 7 choruses, and they'll forget that there are other people behind them playing that are accompanying them. And then there's the other side, which is the rhythm section, who is thinking, wow, they're not even thinking about the fact that they've probably said what they had to say already, and they're just playing. And so now what I'm seeing for myself is I'm getting burnt out, so I can't really and fully invest myself into the song anymore because I'm burnt out from playing all these choruses. So I want to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the etiquette part of it, but then we're going to also talk about the theoretical and the methodical side of things. Talk about how when you're in the bandstand, the first thing you need to make aware, and this is for all the horn players, for young horn players, what you need to make awareness of is that there are individuals on the stage who do not stop playing the entire time. Primarily the two instruments that you're going to see continuously playing throughout the entire set is the bass player and the drummer. Okay? The bass player and the drummer are the two musicians on stage who are not going to stop, especially the bass player. The bass player really can't stop. So you have to think about when you're about to take a solo. I know that it's very exciting to get on stage and you want to play, but there are people on stage who are not stopping, who have to continue to move the entire time. To first be mindful of that. Okay, all my young horn players, be mindful that no matter if you're playing with seasoned rhythm section players or beginner rhythm section players, there are usually 2 out of the 3 or 2 out of the 4 if you're including a guitarist or a vibraphonist or any auxiliary percussionist, but primarily the trio, the bass, drums, and piano. 2 out of the 3 of them are not going to stop playing. All right, so please keep that in mind. All right, number 2, when you begin to play, do not assume that the rhythm section is going to know exactly what you're going to play right off the bat. And let me explain what I mean by that. I have played with really seasoned horn players. I'm going to name one of them that I play with. His name is Lou Delgado. Lou Delgado was a former member of the Saturday Night Live band. He was on the low end, played baritone, flute, all the woodwind instruments, and he also arranged for them. Lou has an impeccable ear. And what I've learned from playing with Lou is that he will literally, when he starts the solo, he will not start playing until maybe the end of the first chorus of his solo. Because what he's doing is he's listening to the rhythm section. He's trying to get a feel of the rhythm section first and foremost. Number 2, he's trying to understand theoretically what is it that the 3 of them are thinking, and how can I fit into whatever they're playing in real time, because I have no clue what they're thinking as they're playing it in real time. That's number 2. Number 3, rhythmically, he's paying attention to because the bassist who's playing consistent quarter notes, well, for the most part. But the drummer, either that drummer's playing a very loose time, straight time, where it's really in the pocket, driving it, or something where it's in the medium. So now, when Lou starts the solo, it fits, like right off the bat. Everything he starts to play, it fits in what we're doing. I picked that up after a year playing with him. Now, I've been playing with him for 5 years now. I picked that up after the first year, and I asked him, I said, why do you always start your solos towards the end of your first chorus? Like you won't, are we playing the wrong, am I playing the wrong chords? Or he's like, no, I'm just trying to get a feel for you guys first. And he left it at that. He didn't explain. He didn't give me no explanation. He didn't say, well, Brandon, he just said, I'm just trying to get a feel for you guys. Now, this is from somebody who has played with world-class musicians for 30 plus years, right? Let's say you're a young horn player and you're playing with a young rhythm section. You guys are all excited. Everyone is super excited about what's going on. You get to play, you get to show off your skills, everything you shed it on and everything like this. But then the horn player forgets that, again, rule number one, there are 2 out of the 3 individuals on the stage who will not stop playing. And then number 2, the drummer and the bass are the ones that are rhythmically consistently having that motion. So if you're not listening to what's going on, you're just going to straight up clash with the conversation. All right. So my advice to the young players too is, number 1, don't start playing right off the bat. Maybe listen for a second. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't take that as disrespectful. Some rhythm section players might have no, because I've heard that, and that's not true. That's usually not the case. Listen, don't just right off the gate just. It's like, okay, here we go. So, because what you just did was you just told the rhythm section, I'm not listening to you. You're a backing track for me, and I'm going to tell you right now, we don't like that. We don't like when horn players consider us as backing tracks. That is super disrespectful. It's disrespectful without you having to verbally tell us that. It's musically disrespectful. It's like, oh, I have a really great bass player, a really great drummer. Oh, this piano player sounds great. Click, play, and then you just go. And then you forget that we are real human beings who are breathing, playing in real time, and we get, to a point where we get winded. So there has to be that courtesy there, right? Also, theoretically, I have been told this by my own Mr. Bill Peterson. Not Bill Peterson, he's my piano teacher. Bill Kennedy, excuse me, Bill Kennedy. There was 2 Bills in that program. Bill Kennedy used to always say this, and I thought it was hilarious when he would look at the horn player and he would say, guys, the rhythm section doesn't need to hear you play a bunch of crap. Get in and out, say what you got to say, and get off the stage. And he would say that often, not like try to be mean, but what he was trying to say is, when you're up on stage, you're having a conversation. So you don't want to have a bunch of run-on conversations with not only the band, but with the audience, because they're just going to get burnt out after a while. So what he meant by say what you got to say and get out, that means you need to really listen intuitively to what's happening around you, to where you understand where you fit in the conversation. Say your point across, have a couple of jokes, laugh, hee hee ha ha. Oh wait, you want to debate? Hey, let's debate a little bit, and then you audio step into the conversation. In order to do that, you need to listen, horn players. You need to listen to a really great horn player, like the greats. You got Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, Sonny Rollins, the usuals. But here's a horn player who is not mentioned a lot, Charlie Rouse. And Charlie Rouse, who was an alto saxophonist that played with Thelonious Monk. If you listen to any of the Monk Quartet records where Charlie Rouse is playing saxophone, you will hear that direct lineage I'm talking about, the conversation between him and the rhythm section. Either it's with him and Monk, or sometimes him and Ben Riley, or sometimes him and Larry Gales. It's with one of the members of the rhythm section that he's having. because he's trying, and then those solos are very short. He's not taking 5-minute solos. Those solos are like maybe 2.5 minutes. It is so specific. It taught me like how to actually think. And I actually did a session on this a while back, how to think like a horn player from a rhythm section perspective, because listening to someone like him taught me how to really accompany a horn player where I can play something in my bass line to where that horn player is going to react and respond back to it. That's something I learned from listening, and good horn players do that. Okay, so when you're also on stage, here's another thing that I want you to pay attention to. When you're playing with a great rhythm section, it's always good to not stand. And I always ask. I've asked saxophonists, trumpeters, not stand in front of the rhythm section. They'll stand to the side when they solo. Usually on the side of the drummer. Most of the time, I hear them near the drummer versus the pianist. I don't know if that's because they want to feel the pulse and where they're soloing, because their ears are good enough to where they can hear and they know what's going on. But for the most part, what I've always found interesting is that if you stand directly in front of the rhythm section, you can hear audibly like everything what's happening. But what tends to happen with younger players is they don't know what to listen for while they're soloing. That's the key. Where every time I've seen any of my younger students play in a combo, that's the one thing I'm paying attention to. I was like, the horn players don't understand. They're not listening to the rhythm section right now, because what they're playing is super disconnected with their group. And so what you need to understand is you're not just listening to one specific instrument. You have to train your ear to listen to everything in real time. So here's what I would suggest from you. Listen from the bottom up. Okay? So if you're standing in front of the rhythm section, the bass player more than likely is right behind you, depending on how the setup is. Sometimes you have this kind of like V-like shape where the bass player will be in the middle, the drummer will be to the left of the bass, and then the pianist will be to the right of the bassist. Or you'll have it where the bass player is at the end, but then the drummer is kind of in the crook, and then the piano's here. So whatever configuration. But a standard configuration, usually you have your basses in the middle. Okay, because the bass, you want to feel that bottom traveling out. So all the other players that are on stage feel the bottom from harmonically and from the ground up. Okay, so if you're a horn player, you want to listen. You want to be listening for that bottom. Okay, that bottom motion. All right, because again, the pianist at any given moment can stop playing, especially if it's a piano player that A, doesn't know what they're doing, or B, they don't know what's going on, so they'll just drop out for a second to listen, which usually at that point they're listening to the bass player if they're harmonically lost. If it's a rhythm issue, they're mainly going to try to listen for the drums to feel the pulse. So there's things that are happening. As a horn player, you have to know what's going on within the rhythm section. Otherwise, it's going to go right over your head, and you're going to start soloing, and it's going to sound like chaotic. And you're like, what? They're in the wrong place. No, you just jumped in a spot where it wasn't correct, or it wasn't that bottom, that motion. Okay, then work your way over to the drummer so you can feel that bottom connecting with the drummer. So when you're soloing, if you stop playing in the middle of your solo, you're not gonna jump in a weird place where the rhythm is on a upbeat or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Where you're falling on a place where the beat doesn't fit. So once you get that checked out and you get that coordinated, then your right ear per se, or I should say, if you're standing on, your right ear. Now you're listening for the pianist, and so now you're trying to connect harmonically what the piano player is fitting in with the bass player. because they can play syncopated rhythms between the pulse of the bass player, but then the feel of the drummer. So you're soloing, you're understanding like what's going on around you. And I try to tell my students at the university, my jazz students, when you guys are improvising, y'all think, oh, there's a rhythm section, I could just jump in and do what I want. No, there is a system, there's still a method and a system of how you want to approach it. You can't just you don't just go up to a stranger and say, hi, my name is Brandon Robertson, and I teach how to drive. I don't just do that. Like, right? I wouldn't just go to anyone in the screen and just start. You would look at me crazy, right? But if I said, hello, hi, how are you? Good, nice to meet you. My name is Brandon. There's a dialogue there, right? There's something that's being understood here. So that same approach has to happen from the horn's perspective while they're listening. Okay, so if you go on stage, and I'm gonna go back to my earlier topic, and let's say there's a blues. This usually happens on these two types of tunes: a blues or rhythm changes. One of those two tunes, if it's a rhythm changes or blues, someone starts to go on a tangent. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if you don't believe me, to all my young horn players, try it and see what happens with the rhythm section. You will hear a very, very specific change after a while. And I'm not talking about deliberate, like not intentionally. You will just start to hear a change of feel, of effort, because at this point, if the rhythm section feels as a group, as a whole, that you have said what you had to say and you're still going at it, then it's starting to get dragged out, and then you can tell that the rhythm section is like, okay, so I'm gonna tell you what I've heard bass players do. I'll give a little. I'm not giving out our secrets, just for a horn player. Just hear it. If the horn player ain't happening, you will hear a lot of pedal points coming from the bass player. Doom, 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 doom. That's like hitting it's like the wrap it up button. Ding, wrap it up. Come on. Ding, wrap it up. Ding, yep, wrap it up. Ding, ding, yep. You say what I say, wrap it up. Ding. Or you hear drummers do, where they'll go ding, 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 ding. Like a big strong one, like a big one, like that. There are very subtle indications where the rhythm section is trying to tell you, okay, you said what you had to say, you need to go. All right, and for real, be courteous of the fact that you have 3-4 individuals who are continuously moving, and then you guys, all the horn players and gals, up, play, it's fun, and then you stop and you don't have to play anymore, where we're still going. Okay, so from our perspective, how do you listen? You need to listen to give them a chance to get the groundwork going for you before you jump in. Then once you jump into the conversation, try your best in your best effort to make an actual conversation with the rhythm section versus letting it sound like a backing track. And I'm telling you, you can hear I've had so many horn players young horn players come up to me and say, what were you guys doing on stage? Like you did something and the sax player did. And I tell them all the time, I don't know. I can't tell you. I could not tell you what I played 5 minutes ago. All I knew was and that's because whoever that horn player that I was playing behind wasn't listening to me as a backing track, but was intuitively listening to what I was doing, trying to figure out, okay, the bass player played this note, I'm going to go off of that. So if I hit like a tritone note on the blues, right? So let's say if I play an F7 and I hit a B natural by mistake, he might start playing some Lydian, going up and like, oh, okay, so that's the whole point of using the using your ear. And like what Miles Davis says, there's no wrong notes in jazz. So that's what I mean by having a good horn player, like listening to the rhythm section correctly. Okay. And then lastly, I will leave you with this last point here. It's very important that while playing, when you start, for instance, it's very important to not to try to disrupt the flow of what the rhythm section is doing. So I've been told sometimes, like, hey, bass player, don't play this pedal point, or don't do stop time behind me, or don't, which is fair. You are allowed to tell the rhythm section what you don't want to do, because we will just, if most of the time we do those things because we're bored. Because again, if you're playing like 5-6 choruses and you ain't said nothing yet, at some point we're gonna have to do something to make this a little more interesting for us. So you do have the right, and it's a common courtesy, to not be rude about it, but you are allowed to ask, like, hey, would you mind not doing this behind me, or don't play this note. But don't tell the rhythm section, like, to not try to be creative. Then you're kind of like restricting the conversation a bit. Like, it's like, oh, certain topics are off limits. You can't say nothing. And in jazz, not that everything is a free for all, but it kind of is. Anything is possible. Ornette Coleman expressed that with free jazz, with jazz is shaped to come. So like, we have albums where you have that approach. So the same deal with the horn player. When you're listening to a rhythm section, give the rhythm section an opportunity to talk back, to actually offer you something. Again, some of the pros that I've had the opportunity to play with, I'll give you an example. When I went to the GEN conference, the Jazz Education Network conference, I went there last year in New Orleans, right before COVID, happened. And I remember a good friend of mine, Jason Hainsworth, who music conservatory. He runs their Roots Jazz American Music program, and so he was on stage. We were playing this David Brubeck piece, and it's In Your Own Sweet Way. That's what I was like. I'm trying to think of the song, and he wanted the rhythm section to start off and play this vamp, and I had to ask him. I said, "Man, that's a weird vamp that our chord you want us to start on." And he's like, man, just listen, just go for it. And I was like, all right, so we started playing this. I started playing this vamp, and this man started playing the most beautiful, and I was like, oh my God. He told me, he said, I got that idea from listening really good bass players who would do these pedal points on certain like chords, and you can hear the inner harmony within that. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, man, I've heard it done multiple times, especially on this song. And that's something that, again, I learned playing with great horn players like that. Listen to rhythm section players that learn, they take information, and they say, man, some of my greatest ideas, he said, some of my greatest ideas come from listening to really good rhythm section players, because y'all play things that in real time I can't necessarily execute on my instrument, but rhythmically it comes through, so I can catch it in real time and respond. That's why I'm able to explain some of these things to you the way I'm explaining it, because really great horn players have taught me that, the reason why they have these great solos sometimes is because the rhythm section is playing in a way where they're feeling it and differently than how they were originally. Because you got to think, most horn players, when you're learning how to improvise, everything is kind of like horizontal. So you're going like this. You know what I'm saying? And rhythm section players, we kind of go like this, especially, I play bass, so I'm thinking more like vertical, the way I approach bass and drums. Even with time, I'm kind of thinking more like, or they're more kind of like this. But even piano players, you know what I'm saying? Like there's this interchangeable motion that happens between the rhythm section. So if you're a good horn player that knows how to pick these things up, it makes your soloing better. It makes your timing better. It actually makes you a lot more effective improviser, because you won't feel like you have to stretch everything out in a matter of time to get what you have to say, because you don't know what's going on. So my advice to you, if you're a young player, and especially if you're playing horn players, I would always challenge you all to attend jam sessions and try to play with seasoned other seasoned horn players, seasoned rhythm section players. Excuse me, I had it backwards. If you're a young horn player, play with seasoned rhythm section players, because they will play in a way where it will force you to really have to listen to how to play in that space, and that's what helps you grow. It helps you play music differently. Okay, so lastly, just to wrap everything up, in order to really master how to listen to a rhythm section when you're performing, and from a theoretical, methodical standpoint, you have to listen to records, these great trio records. I always refer to students to those Miles Davis quintet records, and that's because if you listen to how it was two different groups, you had a group where you had Tony, Ron, and Herbie, but then you had the earlier group. You had Red Garland, Philly Joe, and Paul Chambers. You have two completely different rhythm sections, played with the same trumpeter, but with two different feels, two different approaches, right? So it made Miles play different. If you listen to that 60s group, that group sounds a lot and more advanced and a lot more as a group, versus the first one where it was very subtle. Like Miles had such a strong rhythm section that even when Paul would play a certain figure, or Philly Joe would play a certain figure, or Red would play a certain figure, like he would react. He was learning how to react in real time. So when he got to Herbie, Ron, and Tony, that was a big elevation. That was a big leap. Remember, try to only do two chords. Maybe the first chorus, maybe play a little bit so you can just hear what's going on with the rhythm section. Then once you figure out, okay, I kind of have an idea, go for it. And don't be afraid to mess up. It's okay. It is okay. No one is going to scrutinize you. I promise you, okay? I say that very confidently. If cats up there, the seasoned vets, are hearing that you're going for it and you're trying, and they can hear that you actually are trying to listen, they're not going to scrutinize you. They're going to actually help you. They might actually say, hey, young man, come here. Young lady, come here. Stay up here. Do one more, because they heard something. So I challenge you all to, instead of getting up there and getting excited, which you can keep the excitement, but just don't go up there just right off the bat. Calm down and listen.
You know what, Professor? You said so many awesome things here.
What's that?
One thing I love that you said, and I love this about jazz, that rhythm section, or those seasoned players, they want you to go for it. They want you to try. They want you to attend the jam sessions, because I've noticed those young students that step out and try to play with those guys, they always grow so much quicker. And I like the fact that this is a art form and a community where they invite you to make that mistake, but first try. So I want to really encourage any young listener, or say if you're a musician and you've been classically trained and you're saying, wow, I would love to do jazz, I just don't know where to start. I think, even as a horn player, listen to what Professor Brandon just said. Go out there and try, but communicate. That's the second thing I heard, a conversation. And don't treat your rhythm section as a backing track. If you're going to do that, you might as well put on iReal Pro and let that thing run. But how interesting is it when that person comes in and they play something and then the piano player comes right behind them and they catch it, and then the bass player catches it? Those are the moments that are once in a lifetime opportunities. It happens right there on the spot. It's spontaneous, and that's what jazz is.
Mm-hmm. And let me add on to that. I mentioned Lou earlier. You know, Lou is also the saxophonist on my album. He is very intentional on how he responds back to folks in real time. Like it is kind of, it's scary because it's like, man, it makes me question sometimes. Like, man, I don't really want to like try to like interact with you on stage, man, because like I feel like if I answer you incorrectly, like you gonna go off on me musically. Like if he says boop 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 and I go boop, and he go boop 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 boop, you know, it's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, you know. But that's not the case. You know, he will actually, and he's done this. It's actually, matter of fact, if you don't believe me, everybody, I don't know how you would see it, but on my Facebook page, on my personal Facebook page, I did a live stream at the Bellroom last week, and there's a part of the video, or there's a video up on my page from the Bellroom. When I went and listened to the video, I thought I was playing out of tune. I was like, am I playing something wrong? I was like, no, I'm playing the right changes. No, I'm right there. It's just, when you're looking at his face, he wasn't looking at me like, where are you at? He was just, he had his eyes closed and he was just bobbing his head like, okay, I'm trying to feel you and Tony, where y'all at? Like I know where you guys are at, but I'm trying to feel where I can come in. And as soon as you hear him come in, he starts trailblazing. I mean, the whole room starts yelling because just the way he came in, it was like perfect timing. I mean, Bob Cranshaw was one of his best friends. That's one of the greatest bass players that came out of the 80s. Like, this dude, like, when you got people that you've grown and trained with like that, you hear it different. So I'm glad you said that because, man, I feel like a lot of young players are afraid to just jump out and, you know, really take that chance. And I tell them all the time, they're not going to scrutinize you. You'll be surprised how good you sound if you actually went for it. Because all that practicing you did on your own, it's not going to really come out and you're not going to really hear it until you get in a real situation and have to do it, you know?
That's true. It's nothing like training in real time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So you're right there in the water and say, guess what? You're going to have to swim now.
With no life jacket.
With no life jacket.
With sharks all around you.
What better training is that? You know what? I want to thank everyone for coming today. Thank you, Professor. I mean, this has been an awesome session today. You know, we want to apologize if we had any technical difficulties. You know, come on back.
I'm in Italy.
All good. You know, he shared some amazing things today, and I think we can all take notes and just go back and apply. You remember, you know, having this knowledge and you're not applying it makes absolutely no sense. It was of no value for you. So please come on back, and please make sure you share with other people about the great things you're hearing here at the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master virtual sessions. Don't forget, we do want to hear some feedback. So email us at info@clearwaterjazz.com and check out more free sessions at clearwaterjazz.com/education. I am your guest host, Michael Kernodle. I am a horn player, and I'm going to listen to the rhythm section from now on. Thank you, Professor, for schooling me on that. And y'all have an awesome, awesome day. We'll see you.
You're welcome.
Keep swinging.